What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of New York. This is season 14, episode 4 and 5. I know I'm behind, but we catching it right on up. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So before we get into it, we gonna get a little spicy, and we're gonna talk about this spicy thing that came down my timeline of it's a screenshot from Bravo Snark's side, and it's from page 6. I'm not going to read the article, but the link will be in the description bar below if you would like to read it for yourself. But it goes, RHONY newbie Brynn Whitfield confirms she's DMing Southern Charm star Shep Rose. And then the caption says, girl, why? And I'm with them. Shep is such, like, he gives douchey frat bro energy. And if you don't know who that is, Shep is on a Bravo series called Southern Charm. I think they're in like maybe their 7th or 6th season. Let me see. How many seasons of Southern Charm are there? Oh no, they're in season 9. So they have 9 seasons. But I used to watch Southern Charm in the early seasons. Like, so when Catherine and Evil Thomas were still on the scene. And I know Craig is still on the show. I know Carmen ain't on the show anymore. But I used to watch the show like maybe probably the early, like the last time I like really sat down and watched the show was probably season 4. And I stopped watching after that. And I've been in and out, but I've been looking at clips. And Shep still seems like he's the same. Still giving that douchey frat bro energy. He has such Peter Pan syndrome. It's like he doesn't want to grow up. And the crazy thing is, I Googled like when, like how old Shep is, and he's 43. And I was like, also, when did season 1 of Southern Charm come out? And I think it said 2017. So that was 6 years ago. That means Shep was like 37 on season 1, and he still acts the same. And even when I was watching season 1, I thought he was in his late 20s, like 28, 29, and he was 36. Like, girl, why? I don't understand. There's nothing appealing about Shep or Southern Charm. Like, he just gives, like I said, he just gives like drunken frat bro. And after 22, 23, that is not appealing anymore. It's not. It's just, it's sad. Oh, girl, Brynn, do better. Do better, girl. I want better for you. All right, y'all. So episode 4. I like this episode mainly because we got more backstory about Brynn and Uba. And I feel like they did a good job fleshing out Erin. So we know Erin is Jewish. We know her roots are in New York, like this is where she grew up and she was raised. We know Sai came from Brooklyn. She had a tumultuous childhood, but she was able to aspire and become what she always dreamed about. We know Jenna, her being a part of J. Crew, being this well-known person in fashion, and her growing up with a mom that had, I think she said Asperger's. Yeah, Asperger's. And then you have Jessel, who moved from London, has the twins, the husband, and the back. So it's like we've gotten a lot of backstory about those 4 ladies, but we haven't heard anything about Uba and Brynn really, other than when Brynn was talking about her family being really poor and looking through the magazines and wishing she could purchase certain things, but we didn't really get to know her more. So I was happy that in this episode, they gave us more about their backstories, her and Uba. So with Brynn, we see her at the hair salon getting her hair done, and we find out that Brynn, in fact, is mixed and she's black and white. Like, we already knew she was mixed. Like I told y'all, Brynn could definitely pass during the antebellum era. Shoot, if she would have went to, what's it called, Louisiana, it would have been, she'd have been good, you know? But she was born in Indiana. She has 2 other siblings. I think she just said 2 brothers. And she was raised by her white side, her grandmother. She doesn't really have a relationship with her mom or her father. And she doesn't have a connection to her black side. So she's at the hair salon getting her hair done by a black lady because, girl, she gonna do your hair right because she know that type of hair, okay? And Brynn was talking about how her grandmother had to relax her hair because she didn't know how to take care of natural hair because she was a white lady raising 3 biracial kids, and there was nobody around to like educate her on how to properly take care of mixed or black hair. So Brynn was just telling how like her grandma, I think, worked at a hospital. She was either a counselor or a receptionist. And there was another receptionist that worked there that was a black lady that told her, like, girl, bring them down to the hair salon. We gonna get them right. And Bryn talks about how, like, that was like one of her highlights of the week, where they would go down, spend like 6 to 8 hours in the that really is the black experience at the beauty shop. God, be there all day and be pissed. But the fact that she enjoyed it shows how much she craved being around people that made her feel welcome. Because I know it had, like she said, it was hard. They got bullied for her being black. They grew up in an all white town probably, and they stuck out like sore thumbs because they were the only biracial kids, and they probably did get picked on, had racist slurs hurled at them and taunts and things of that nature. So probably, not probably, being around people who didn't treat you that way, who readily accepted you, made her feel good. And I was happy for her with that. It sucks though that she doesn't have a connection with her fraternal side. Like, and the sad thing about it is, like, she wants it. Like, there's a lot of biracial people, because you can go on TikTok, who will not want to be considered as black, or who will not acknowledge that they're black. But there are some who are like, no, I embrace all parts of me, the white side, the black side. And it's sad that, like, she didn't get the opportunity to grow up with those people. Because, you know, she had a connection to her mom's side of the family because her grandma was the one that took care of her. But she didn't have that from her father's side. And that's sad. That's sad, because everybody deserves to be loved. Because, like I told y'all, like, I've been learning that, you know, having a baby is selfish, because you don't get a say on whether or not you get to be here. And if you're going to have a kid, I believe that you should be able to give them the life that you would want yourself to have as a child. That means acceptance, love, understanding, the proper shelter, food, you know, comfort and warmth. And the fact that she didn't have that, and, you know, none of her siblings had that, it's sad. Like, it's really sad. But she said when she turned 40, she gonna start wearing her natural hair. I mean, girl, just start now. Cut it off and let it go. You know, you probably will feel better about yourself. I mean, I don't think she feels bad. You know what? She might. But I feel like her curl pattern would actually probably be nice. Like, you could kind of see it. And she was complaining about it being uneven and not the same. But that's honestly with any natural hair. Natural hair or curly hair, like, your ringlets in your hair are never the same. Like, the front of my hair is when I wet it, is a lot looser than the back of my hair that shrinks up like crazy. But I was like, okay, I'm still mulling over whether or not, like, how I feel about these people. I don't think this is a bad season. I'm giving it the grace it deserves. But it was nice to get more information about Bryn, especially, like, how she grew up. We then have a scene with Uba. We find out this episode that Uba is in fact an entrepreneur and a model, and she has her own hot sauce. It's called Uba Hot, or Uba Hot. And y'all, one of my mutuals went online and was like, Uba asking for $60 for 3 jars of hot sauce. And I said, girl, nah. And I'm looking at it now. It is $59.99. And y'all know, with the way Amazon does it, it's gonna probably be it's probably going to be like at least like $65 with the way they be adding tax. But it comes in really cute little jars. I like the labeling. And it's probably good, because Uba looked like she liked to eat. So it's probably good. But we get more about her backstory. And I'm not going to lie, y'all, she had me tearing up when she started talking about her mom. So she's sitting down with her business partner, I would assume. I didn't catch if she was. I think she is her business partner. Or a business consultant, or was she her counselor? I'm sorry, I was like in and out when I was watching this part, because I didn't catch what the lady was. But she was sitting down. I'll just call her a friend, and she was talking about wanting to invest more into her company to, like, you know, keep allowing it to grow. And she was like, the friend was like, well, girl, why are you not like jumping at the opportunity? Like, your product's doing well. This is when you need to strike and start calling in investors. And Uba is like, well, I need someone to be a silent investor because I don't want them telling me what to do with my company, which is understandable. And then she was like, in my culture, like, I wouldn't have to go to the bank to get money. It's very community based. I probably go to like my uncle or an aunt or a cousin that has the money, and that's how it would go. But like, I don't have that anymore. And then I thought it was kind of mean. It's kind of because the lady was like, well, you don't have your family around, basically, like your community's not here. I was like, okay, girl. Like, I was like, that's kind of harsh, but all right. I mean, it's a realization that probably she needed to hear, but like, dang. And she was like, who would you always call? And she was like, my mom. And then Uba started to get very emotional. And we find out that her mom passed away, unfortunately, in 2012. And she was just like, that was the person that I called for everything. Like, she was the breadwinner of our family. Seems like her mom was the matriarch. So she was like, anytime I had any issues, that is the person I would call. And then she talked about how, you should cherish your parents because one day they won't, like, your mom won't be here anymore, and it's gonna suck. And she was very emotional. Like, you could tell, like, it's still a sore spot for her, even though it's been almost 10 years. No, it's been 10 years since her mom passed away. But if you have a great relationship with your mom or any person, it doesn't even have to be a mom. It could be like a best friend or a cousin or a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle. If they meant a lot to you, it hurts. It hurts because you want to experience life with them. You want to share everything with them because you knew they had your back. So she was so emotional, and the lady asked her, she was like, well, what would your mom tell you to do? And she said, my mom would say, girl, get that money. Go get that money, go get that partner, and keep growing your business. So she said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get this money. I'm going to keep growing my business, and I'm going to make it work. And I hope she makes it work. I really do. So next we have this scene with Jessel and her husband, and she's pretty much debriefing him about what went down in the Hamptons. And he pretty much took the other lady's side. He was like, your tone. You're like, you have a tone when you say things. And she was like, are you calling me a bitch? And he was like, no, but you probably was acting like one. That's basically what he said. He was like, you can kind of be that way. So as they're sitting on the couch, she's just like, she felt ganged up on. She was like, Sai and Aaron were just coming at me. And I was like, I didn't think what I said was that bad. And I wish Jenna would have been an adult and just said like, hey, I didn't like what you did, instead of letting other people fight her battles. So then Jessel goes and meets up with Jenna. They're at like some boutique and they sit down and talk, and they pretty much hash it out. And Jessel just basically tells Jenna, like, if you thought I was being a dick or an asshole, you should have just said something and I would have like corrected and I would have taken it. But to have the cackling hens come at me, it was a lot. Like, it was a lot. And then Jenna's like, well, I'm glad you told me I could check you. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, honestly, I know Jenna isn't confrontational, but you're on a show that's built off of confrontation. And if you felt some type of way, which you voiced in your confessional when Jessel was doing a lot about being in that ugly lingerie that you purchased for her, then you should have been like, hey, like, what you said hurt my feelings. The same way Aaron can be very direct and she checked Jenna, Jenna needs to be able to do the same things with others. So we then see Jenna is at Aaron's house, and Jenna is debriefing Aaron about her conversation that she had with Jessel. And Aaron immediately is like, did she say something about me? And I was like, Aaron, shut up. And she was like, Jenna's like, no, she called y'all cackling hens. And Aaron's like, what? Where did she get that from? And then Jenna gonna be like, I don't know where she got that from. But when they did a flashback, when they went to dinner, you heard Jenna say, ooh, I can hear them cackling. So she got it from you, Jenna. Jenna sowed that seed about what Jessel said to be messy, because she still probably has an issue with Jessel and still feeling some type of way because she passive aggressive. So Jenna was like, I feel like we needed to be more empathetic towards Jessel, and Aaron was like, "What do you mean?" Because Jenna made this analogy about her like being a child, and you know, like normally when you're already feeling bad about yourself and you do something and everyone comes at you, you start to feel weird. Because Aaron was like, we weren't really coming at her, and it's like, yeah, y'all were. Like y'all weren't aggressive in any way, but it was just like it was two. It's basically 2-on-1. And y'all kept calling her out, and it was like, okay, we get it. Y'all were upset about the way Jessel behaved. So Jessel is just kind of like, yeah, like they flashes back to a scene with her husband, and then she starts talking about like, well, they brought up our sex life, and he was like, it's the marriage tax, and she's like, what do you mean? And her husband is just basically like, you know, we got so much, we got work, we got 2 twins, it's a lot going on, and a lot of people are like, maybe Jessel isn't attracted to her husband, but I don't know. I feel like maybe something has happened, or maybe he's just not into it. I don't know. Like maybe he just feels like, you know, we got so much going on, I'm not really feeling it. Because I think sometimes we forget that men, because they're always portrayed, and they even portray themselves as nothing but horny dogs. But there are men who just get into slumps like women do, who like morph into like what we think moms and dads are supposed to be, where it's like all you care about is your kids, then work, and it's like you don't have time for yourself. And dudes have that happen to them too. I just don't think they talk about it. And I feel like that's what's up with her husband. Cause I'm like, why wouldn't you want to like, you know, do it? Like Jessel is pretty, and I'm like, your wife's pretty. Like she's hot. Like you don't want to do it. Like what's going on, sir? How you feeling? What you doing? And I hope they don't get a divorce. I mean, I know divorce in their culture is frowned upon, so I would hope that their relationship will work out. But honestly, if it keeps going the way it's going, I feel like they could get a divorce in like maybe the next 2 or 3 years. But I hope not. I hope not. So it flashes back over to Aaron and Jenna talking, and Jenna basically says she feels like Jessel is just trying too hard and not thinking about what she's saying, and it's just like, girl, come on. Like, like she seems very, she was like, I think Jessel is very nice, but I just think she's trying too hard. That's all. So we're going to Sai's house. They're having Friendsgiving, aka Friendsgiving, for Bryn because she let the ladies know when they were in the Hamptons that the holidays isn't like a happy time for her, because it's supposed to be like, you know, time with your family, time with everyone. And she's just like, she doesn't have that type of family connection, so it's hard for her to embrace the holiday season. So everyone comes over to the house. You end up seeing Sai get on to Aaron because Sai sent out a PSA pretty much saying like, hey, have your sock game ready. Like, don't bring no shoes into my house, especially like the dirt and the grime and the piss and the rat poop from New York. Don't bring it into my house. Aaron walks in the house and Sai is like, why you got your shoes on? I sent a PSA. I think that was, Aaron did that purposely, because if everyone's like, girl, she's in a PSA, and you see everybody else with their shoes off, then you could have just followed suit and took your shoes off. Aaron's whole thing about like, it messes up my outfit. Girl, if the lady don't want dirty shoes in her house, then she doesn't have to have dirty shoes in her house. So Aaron lets all the girls know that, what's her name? Jessel called them cackling hens. And they're like, girl, what? Why would she call us that? So everyone's kind of like, okay, Jessel. We then see Jessel finally get to the house, and we find out that Aaron's grandmother, who was 94, passed away. And Jessel was like, oh, like, I didn't know that. I'm sorry to hear that. And then she ended the conversation like, oh, I hope you had a nice day, you know. And Aaron was like, why would you say that? I kind of got what Jessel was saying, like, okay, girl, I'm sorry to hear that. It was a weird thing to say. It was very weird to say, but it wasn't so weird that Aaron should be in her feelings about it, because your grandmother died at 40, not 40, I would say 49, at 94. Like, that's a good age to go. My great grandmother just passed away this year, and she was 101. Like, blessings on blessings. Like, you got her that long. And if someone would have been like, oh, but I still hope that day was a good day, I probably wouldn't take offense to it. I probably been like, yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony. Got to see my cousins, got to see my family, and we sent her off in style. Okay, when I tell you, Miss Willie Mae was sharp when she went into the ground. Okay, so I don't know. I feel like Aaron is just being sensitive about Jessel's comment. So they sit down for Thanksgiving dinner, and Sai brings up how this is really for Bryn because we know how she feels about the holidays. And they're like, well, how are you feeling? And Bryn immediately gets emotional. And she's like, she don't want to do it. But Sai is pushing her to do it. And I hate when people do that. Like, I had like a workshop event to go to, and people were sharing their reasonings for being a part of the program that I'm a part of, and people got really emotional, and the person in front of me started to like, she was about to say something, and I was like, hey, like, just because everyone is sharing deep painting stories, you don't have to share yours. Like, don't feel forced, don't feel like you have to. And Sai kept being like, just let it out, just let it out. Girl, maybe she holding back because if she let it out, she can't get it back in. Like, leave her alone. It sounds to me is like, basically, I feel like Bryn's parents were probably drug addicts, and they probably got caught up in the 80s crack epidemic and things of that. Because Bryn is 30, I think she's 37, 36, which means she was born in like 1987 or like 86. So it's sounding to me like her parents were probably drug addicts. And the reason why I say that is she said that when she was 6 months old, her mom and her dad, we found out that her mom was like in her teens when she had her, and the dad was like a lot older, which makes me feel like her mom probably had Bryn and her siblings between the ages of maybe like 16 and 18, and then the dad was probably in his mid to late 20s. Nasty. And she was saying that like they were living in like Section 8 housing, welfare, food stamps, and all of that stuff. And pretty much the dad kept getting in trouble. And then she was told that like when they found her found her and her siblings, she hadn't been held in like 6 months. Her diaper was full of like feces and urine, and it was just really bad. And that to me signals like maybe they was like on a drug binge, and then like nobody cared for them. So because like if she grew up, like if she was born in the late 80s, I feel like that's what it was. That's like that's what it's given to me. And that's sad, because at the end, like, she's in the confessional, and that's the other reason why it makes me think that it was drugs, because at first she says, I still obsess about why my parents didn't love me, or didn't love me. And then she said why they couldn't love me. And because like when you say didn't, it makes it feel like it was a conscious decision to do it, to not care for someone and not to do anything. But when you say couldn't, it makes it seem like there was something that was impeding them from doing what they were supposed to do. And that's why I think it sounds like drugs to me. But let's move on to episode 5. Well, episode 5 starts off where it left off, where we have Bryn telling her backstory about pretty much, nobody touching or picking her up for 6 days, having a filthy diaper. We find out that I think her grandmother found her and her siblings, or someone alerted the grandmother, and that's how they came to the grandmother. But either way, her grandmother adopted her and her siblings. Bryn is breaking down. Everybody else at the table is like, oh my, like they're just shocked and feeling so heartbroken for Bryn. And even I was like, damn, that is a lot to go through. She then talks about how her father gave up his rights to them, and she was like, she really never saw him again. She just knows, like, at the end of his life, like, so he ended up calling her. They end up reconnecting. He ends up passing away in November the 12th. But before he passed away, they were able to reconnect and build a relationship. He was dying in the hospital of cirrhosis of the liver. And, they were like, well, did he apologize? And she was like, yeah. He said he woke up every day realizing that he was a monster. And this lends to my theory of thinking that Bryn's parents were like suffering from drug abuse or alcoholism. Because normally when someone has cirrhosis of the liver and it's to that extreme, it's due to alcoholism. Like, there's other diseases that cause cirrhosis of the liver, but the most common one is alcoholism. So it sounds like that the crack epidemic probably took them out. So she also talks about, as a child, she wanted to take herself off this realm, off this earthly realm at like 6 in first grade. She thought about drinking a whole bunch of coughing, I think cough syrup or like medicine to just go to sleep. Cause and you think about how crazy that is at the age of like 6 or 7, because I think that's normally how old you are in first grade, to be so overwhelmed and tired of life and be so scared to the point where you're just like, you know what? I just want to go to sleep and never wake up. Like I just want to rest. And she said like how she just was like, if I'm pretty enough, smart enough, funny enough, I don't get in trouble, I don't make too much noise, I'll get to stay where I want to stay with my family. And that's sad, because I bet you there's a lot of kids out there in the foster care system or even living with their own parents that are like scared that they're going to be taken away, that feel like where they're at is safe, but it might not be safe for them because it feels familiar and it's their comfort zone, and they know the people that they're with, they don't want to leave. And to think that it's like you're as a child, you're doing these mental gymnastics and you're bending yourself like in a pretzel to try to like not be a child, not make any mistakes, not be loud, not be silly or goofy, because you feel as though if you are perfect, you'll be able to get what you want out of life. And then when it doesn't happen, it shatters everything that you thought you knew the world was. So everyone ends up giving her words of encouragement, saying how wonderful she is, how, girl, like you made it. And there's not a lot of people who can say that they made it. And that's true. I didn't like what Sai said at the end. She said something about food stamp queen or welfare queen or welfare bitch or food stamp bitch. And it was supposed to be cute and cheeky. But I'm like, after this lady just poured out her heart to y'all, I didn't think that was funny. I kind of was like, girl, you could have kept that when it was a lighthearted moment. Like there was no need to like try to put that in there. So I was like, all right. So the episode, not episode, but the scene ends. We then have this scene of Aaron and Jessel meeting up. So they're at this coffee shop in Tribeca, and Jessel makes a comment about like, ooh, Tribeca is like up and coming, and Aaron took offense to it. I think Aaron is just sensitive. Like, yeah, it could have been a dig that like, girl, where you live ain't that great, but I wouldn't have been like, oh my God, you're offending me. Girl, whatever. So Jessel is sitting there. She drinking her coffee because they're at a coffee shop. And she's like, okay, girl, what you want to talk about? And Jessel's like, I'm thinking we're going to have a conversation and like, hash out our differences. But honestly, in their conversation, it just gave both of these women are passive aggressive. Aaron comes off condescending and she's sensitive. Jessel can be aloof and oblivious at times, and she puts her foot in her mouth. And it's like, it is what it is at this point. So Aaron wants to talk to Jessel about the cackling hag comments, as well as the comments about her grandmother. And Jessel was kind of like, well, I don't think it's that deep for us to like kind of have this conversation. But she pretty much says like, y'all were ganging up on me, so I made the comment. And Aaron was like, well, I think you're a person that is used to being pampered and taken care of. So Jessel was like, so you're trying to say I'm a princess? And Aaron's like, no, I didn't say that, but I just think you're used to being taken care of. And Jessel's like, like, what? No. Like, she was like, I didn't even think it was that deep. Like, the only thing because they're trying to act like Jessel was so unruly in the Hamptons. Now, I get them being upset with the ugly lingerie. The lingerie was ugly, but Jessel was beating a dead horse with constantly complaining over and over and over about it. But with the Wi-Fi and it being cold in Aaron's house, that shows how much of a crappy hostess Aaron is. One, why do you have people at your house and it's cold during the cold season? And they have to put on 3 and 4 blankets to get warm. Like, if I'm freezing my feet off, I'm going to have an attitude and I'm going to tell you about it. Then there's no Wi-Fi. Why do you have these grown women in a house full of no Wi-Fi? And clearly there's no TVs there at your house like that from what we saw. So it's like, they don't really have anything to do and they don't want to be in your face the whole time. But it looked like the room that Aaron was in had Wi-Fi, had heat. So if Aaron was a good host, she would have gave her room up to somebody, or she wouldn't have invited them to her cold house with no Wi-Fi. So they're sitting down at the table, and Jessel was like, I don't even think what I complained about was that serious. So then Jessel took offense to being to the whole like I'm pampered and I need to be taken care of. Jessel's like, girl, I'm an immigrant. Like I ain't never be taken care of. Like I have businesses. And Aaron is like, well, you told me you didn't work. And Jessel's like, yeah, I told you I wasn't working now, but I am working. I have a consulting line. I'm importing new designers. Like I actually work. I'm a woman that supports women. So then that pissed Aaron off, and Aaron was like, "Don't do that." And Jessel said, "Do what?" So they're going back and forth. Jessel is sitting very postured, like, girl, we don't gotta be friends. That's what it boils down to. Jessel pretty much said we don't have to be friends. Like it's cute or whatever, but I don't have to be your friend. I got friends. And Aaron, I think, thought they was gonna come to some common ground because Aaron was like, if we can have a direct conversation, then I'm cool. But it's like we can't do that because she won't take accountability. And I'm like, I can get her taking. She did take accountability. No, she didn't. In a roundabout way, Jessel did take accountability for complaining about the lingerie, but that's the only thing I can say that them being upset about. Her calling them cackling hens, hags. I mean, is it rude? Yes, but if she felt ganged upon, and which I feel like y'all were, Cy and Aaron were doing too much on Jenna's behalf because Jenna is the oldest one. She's 55, and she wanted to speak up. She could speak up. She could say that and y'all could just deal with it as it may. But like if she doesn't feel sorry, then I don't understand why y'all are pressed about her taking accountability. We see this scene of the girls meeting up at a chess coffee shop. We find out Bren likes to play chess. And we see Jessel. No, not Jessel. We see Aaron, Bryn, and Cy at the chess coffee place, and they're talking about the meetup that Jessel and Aaron had. Aaron lies and says that Jessel got upset and got really emotional about being called princess, and then she explains the story where she was like, well, I didn't call her a princess. She just was like, where are you calling me a princess? Then Bryn was like, well, I think it's funny that she's getting emotional about being called a princess when she called you two cackling hags. So then Cy and Aaron are like, well, we weren't really coming at her throat. We were just trying to tell her what she did was wrong. And it was like, y'all were coming at her. Y'all may have not been like aggressive, but y'all both were tag teaming on her. And if she felt that way, she felt that way. Then Aaron says how she was offended that Jessel pretty much tried to insinuate that she doesn't support other women in their business adventures. So then Cy was like, well, I have a question. Are you gonna go to her party? So because we find out that Jessel is having like a launch party for one of her clients who designs designer bags and other garments. And she's like, are you gonna go? And Aaron said at first I wasn't gonna go, but now I'm about to go because you questioning whether or not I support other women, and I support other women. So I was like, okay. So they all decided to go. And no, before they went to go to like Jessel's event, Bryn was sitting at the table talking about, I don't know if I can move forward with someone that doesn't take accountability, because when you don't take accountability, I move forward away from you. And I was like, Bryn, shut up. Because you wasn't taking accountability in the first couple of episodes. You keep trying to deflect and put the blame on other people about not hanging out with Aaron. And now all of a sudden it's like, I want to take accountability. I need some people have to take accountability. Girl, be quiet. So we're at Jessel's event. She had it at her home. Her house is actually really big, or that penthouse is actually really big. And the bags that the guy was, the designer was showing off were actually really nice. A lot of people were purchasing things. I heard them say like, oh, we need to get a checkbook out because we have another purchase. So that means people were really invested in that person's work, which is so good for them. So Cy gets there. Jessel and her are sitting beside, like at the bar, and they're eating, and they're talking about the sit down that Aaron and Jessel had. And Jessel pretty much was like, no, Cy was getting on my nerves because Cy was being condescending as well and being kind of mean about it. But I get it. She's still upset about being called a cackling hag. But she was like, oh, I heard you cried. I heard you cried. And Jessel was like, no, I did not cry. I just was like, you're calling me a princess. Like, I don't agree with that. I'm kind of like you, Cy, where it's like, I've worked for everything I've had. I'm an immigrant, yada, yada, yada. And then Cy kind of cuts her off, and she's like, well, you know, maybe it's your British accent. And she kind of starts mocking her with her British accent. Well, Cy started mocking her with making a British accent. And then she's like, well, you kind of give old money. As she's sucking on her fingers, eating off them hors d'oeuvre plates. I said, girl, if you don't get no napkin and wipe your fingers off. And Jessel was like, that's not me. And my thing about it is like, once you hear, like, once you know when people say old money, you know old money comes from slavery, comes from people doing the most atrocious things to other people and gaining finances. It's not a good thing anymore, the way people throw it out there like that. So all the girls show up except Jenna. We see Uba in her pink outfit. We see Bryn. And Saya's like, girl, you look like old money. And Bryn has on a jacket from a man that she won't tell us that she got it from. It's a blazer. It's a cute blazer. Nice red velvet blazer. And she was like, and Bryn is like, oh my God, thank you for calling me that. And Saya is like, see, isn't that a wonderful compliment? Because I gave it to Jessel and she ain't like it. So Aaron finally gets there and the girls sit down and they're like sitting near the sofas, and Jessel walks over there to them and she squats down and she's like, oh, like she touched Aaron and Aaron kind of like tensed up, which was funny to me. But they're like, where's Jenna? And she's like, well, Jessel ends up telling him like, well, Jenna said she had an event to go to, and the girls are like sitting on the sofa like, girl, we just FaceTimed her and she's putting like trimming her tree. She's putting Christmas lights on her tree. And Jessel's like, well, she told me she had an event. So then Sai is trying to like help Jenna out and clean it up, and she's like, well, girls, that's what Jessel said. Like, she had an event. Maybe she just told her she couldn't make it. And I'm like, no, I don't think Jessel would just be like, girl, she said she had an event and lie. Jenna just didn't want to come and probably say she had an event because she ain't want to be there. So then Brenda's sitting on the sofa and she's like, had I not come, it would have been an issue. It feels like Jenna is on a pedestal. And she was like, Jenna be lying. And they were all giggling and stuff like that. And then that's how the episode ended. My thoughts so far, now that we're 5 episodes into this reboot, is I think it's going well. Like, is it A tier? No, it's not. I don't think any reboot other than Miami would ever be like A++, but it's decent. It's a solid B, like maybe C+, B- category. But my thoughts on the ladies so far, Bryn is obnoxious at times, and her whole thing about being held to task compared to Jenna, girl, it is what it is. It is what it is. Aaron is condescending, but I do appreciate how direct that she can be. Sai, there's something about Sai that feels like the way Jenna said Jessel is trying too hard, I feel like Sai is trying too hard. There's kind of an off-putting energy to her, and I haven't pinpoint what it is really, but there's something about her that isn't like, it's not hitting for me. Jenna is definitely being placed on a pedestal because she's Jenna Lyons, because she had a name before she came on the show. But I can see Jenna being a 1-season housewife, because if you're not going to engage beyond the housewives in the sense of like going to events, because I feel like the only reason Jenna went to the Hamptons is because her house was down there, or she had a house down there. Had she not had a house down there, I feel like she would have found a way to get out of it. And you not coming to this group event when you really didn't have a reason other than putting lights on your tree, I don't like that. And I can see it getting old really quickly. But they definitely are putting her on a pedestal. Jessel, I didn't expect Jessel to be in the mix like this. I like Jessel to a certain extent, but I do like how I like her passive aggressive energy. Like, she's passive aggressive, but she's not gonna let these ladies punk her. And I do feel like a lot of the women are picking at Jessel, because some of the things Jessel has done, other than the lingerie thing, isn't that deep to have an issue with her. And being called cackling hags isn't that deep either when you girls were cackling. You were cackling. And then Uba is just there. She's pretty to look at, but she's not really giving me what I expected her to give, especially with her being Ayan's, Chanel Ayan's, what's her name, cousin, and them like acting like she was gonna give us what we needed. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic and hop down in them comments below. Deuces.